Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gary Holt from Exodus and formerly from Slayer, and you're listening to The Razor's Edge.
Karl, welcome to The Razor's Edge.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So, before we talk about the new earthtone9 album, I want to jump back in time before the days of the band. How did you first get into heavy music?
Combination of a couple of things. My dad liked hard rock, so he had like 70s stuff, Eagles, some of those compilation records that had like Black Sabbath and Deep Purple on, and he was a big Led Zepp fan. And then, like at middle school, a new kid turned up with a denim jacket on that had AC/DC and Iron Maiden patches, and I was like, "What's that?" The pictures were cool.
Yeah.
And then, but then, I was 10 or something like that. And so I was more into football or whatever. But then I stayed in touch with that kid. And then when we all went to like comprehensive school, high school, whatever you call it now, it was like he was like big into thrash. And so he used to do comp tapes for everyone and circulate them around. And so really that sort of things happen so fast when you're a kid, probably more so now with technology. But like when Seventh Son came out, I loved it.
Yeah.
And we were watching Live After Death and stuff like that. And so that was like, I guess, the spring of 1988. And then this guy Lee just gave everyone a mixtape that had Overkill and had a couple of tracks of Master of Puppets, a couple of tracks of the First Testament album, Evil Had No Boundaries and the Antichrist by Slayer. So it was like the best stuff that was happening. And then, and then that was the same year that like State of Euphoria came out and And Justice for All came out, probably 100 other absolutely killer records.
Yeah.
So by the time Christmas came around, all I was asking for was a heavy metal album. And it's been like that ever since.
Absolutely. So the original earthtone9 run from the late 90s through to 2002 was a pretty legendary 6 years. And I was trying to remember the reasons given at the time why you all broke up. And in researching for this, on the internet, which is a dangerous thing, a number of different views have come up when I've been searching, from not getting a US record deal to you all pulling in different directions. So was there any one reason why you eventually split up back then?
Do you know what? I think it was a combination of, there's some truth in probably all of the stuff that gets put as the thing. So we had that pace that no one else was doing, because like, to go around the houses a bit, Owen, it was mainly him. He was like, "You know what, guys, people are doing, like, indie small bands are following the model that you would expect with a larger band, which is that you do a record every 2 or 3 years, and then the idea is that you tour. But if you want to reach new people, you really need to tour with tour support. So it's getting bankrolled, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that wasn't available to us or many other bands of our ilk. And so he was like, "Listen, we can't. It doesn't make sense for us to do a record every 2 or 3 years. So we did one a year. But what that meant was, we were, I guess, off kilter, and then ArcTanGent, we were playing between 100 and 200 shows a year, and we were living together, and we weren't earning a living from music, but we were devoting all of our time to music. And so, I feel like when you work in that way, you just kind of like light a fuse. It's got a finite amount of time where you can do stuff.
Yeah.
Being in a band to some degree is like being married to 4 people at once. When you're in your 20s, you don't always have the language to be able to communicate what your view is, or you don't have the emotional maturity to navigate stuff. And so, a combination of working our asses off, us being in a pressure cook environment, and kind of it felt like it was done. You know what I mean? And it part of that was about we we achieved more than we ever thought possible when we were kids and when we first started. But then at the same time, we knew that, but we also felt like we had somehow underachieved because there'd been all of this external talk about the promise, the next big thing, the next step is X, Y, and Z. And it kind of felt like we'd run out of gas, you know? We did those really good tunes that became Omega, but that was a demo for Island Records.
Yeah.
And it was like, when I listen to those songs now, I think they're really good songs, but they sound tired and melancholic. And I feel like if those three songs sat in with, you know, like were part of the full breadth of what Earthtone is, with this heavy stuff, there's fast stuff, there's moody stuff, there's down stuff, that would have worked. But I feel like we presented those songs to a big label and they were like, well, what's this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I feel like partly because we weren't, maybe it was just like a lack of maturity again, but we tended to behave in quite a contrarian way.
Yeah.
And sometimes that just hobbled us a bit, you know. Sometimes it's fun to subvert people's expectations, but other times you're just fucking shitting on your own doorstep.
and looking back to that 6-year period, do you have any moments that stand out over that time of what you achieved as a band?
Yeah, I mean, loads and loads. You know, when Morat did that first review of low definition Discord, which was really the thing where it's like, oh, okay. You know, we were proud of that record, but it was basically a compilation album, and we didn't really have any expectations. But as soon as that review happened, then the distribution house for the CDs were like, well, okay, HMV and Virgin are going to take 200 each, and they're going to be in every shop in their chat. And it was just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then little things like that, it snowballs. It's like, okay, well, they want to do a feature, and so they want to have you on the racking at the end, so it's like in prime place. It's like, oh wow, no way. And then there's an opportunity to be on the CD on the front of a big magazine, you know, and all that stuff just felt impossible. And it actually happened. And then, I mean, shit, dude, getting to be on stage every night with Max Cavalera, and it's like seeing the Tom Araya part with Max Cavalera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pretend to be Grady Ovenall. I can't remember what his last name is, but the dude from Will Haven. And you know what I mean? So just if someone had said to 14 or 16-year-old me that was what was going to happen, I would have just been like, you shut your mouth. That's never going to happen. And then, you know, there were other things like when I first started going to shows, it felt like the pinnacle of achievement was to play the Astoria. And so when we got to headline the Mean Fiddler, that felt massive and magic. We had a run where we played the Astoria a few times with Soulfly, with the Disturbed, and yeah, so that just felt magic to be on that stage where I'd seen some of the greatest bands ever do their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you had landed that big label deal, you hadn't split up, hypothetically, where do you think earthtone9 would have gone from 2002 onwards?
Oh, I don't fucking know, dude. I mean, you know, if there were no barriers and everything went as we wanted it to, we would have been in a similar position to the Deftones or Tool, where it felt like had the freedom to do the music that felt real and creatively authentic, but also the resources for it to reach an audience, and you know, for the authenticity and realness of what we were doing to actually connect with an audience en masse and to have a hardcore legit fan base, you know. That if you know, Ganesha, the remover of obstacles, could have come in and done that. That's what it would have been. So something like those two bands, they feel to me like they do their thing. They're pretty original, and there's not a huge amount of drama with what they do. They're doing their thing, but on a you know, a pretty good scale.
That's fair enough. And to think that you Tool are now in doing arenas this week in the UK, and you could potentially you had the same potential as the likes of Tool back in those days.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, it was quite a lot of pressure actually, and it felt like a strange thing because there's it feels like that maybe it's not so much now, but there used to be like these incremental steps where you had to almost like grab the next rung of the ladder, or things all fell to pieces. And so when we stopped being a new band, then there was just this big change, and so we suddenly pivoted on our third record to being an old band, which meant that lots of journalists were focusing on you know, the next generation of talent.
Yeah.
And so really you need to go up a level in terms of fan base and all of the stuff, or you kind of just conk out. And so it felt like we were conking out internally, and that was going to be seen in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then actually just going back to your previous question, it was like I feel like we decided in October or November of 2001 to just take a pause and see if we could become excited again with what we were doing. And then some stuff happened where it was like we started talking about, instead of taking 6 months to see, a few folks in the band were like, well, we can't wait for 6 months and then call it a day. We need to know now what's going to happen. And I was like, well, if you need an answer now, I just don't feel like I have the passion to front earthtone9 anymore. So I'm out, kind of thing. And so that's kind of what happened. And then we sat on it for a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. I think maybe if we had a little bit more patience and gave it a little bit more space, perhaps it wouldn't have. The timing would have been different.
Yeah.
But that whole first phase of the band was just quite intense. You know, everything happened very rapidly.
Absolutely.
There was lots going on.
So if we bring it back to the present day, then, In Resonance Nexus gets its release on 21st of June via Candlelight Records.
Yeah.
I've had it on repeat this week, and I love it. How happy are you with this?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy about it. You know, it felt like, I mean, the songs are great, but it's more than just good songs. It feels like there's an energy and intensity that we haven't had for a while. And when and in fact, I don't think we've ever had this much energy, like musical energy. So it feels like all the cliches, like a new start, a new beginning, new this, new that. And yeah, I just love it, dude. You know, there were lots of points over the last 10 years where it felt like we would never get to make another record, or it wouldn't be an earthtone record. And there were big chunks of time where we were just we were writing songs because we needed to write songs because the world had gone mad and it felt like the world was gonna fall to bits. And it was just like, well, what else can we do other than the thing that we give a shit about the most, which is to write music and talk about music to each other and express ideas and communicate, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like music for its own sake, properly. And we hadn't really made music like that since, you know, the first few songs that we wrote, like Withered and Low Definition Discord, where we had no idea what it was going to turn into, no idea what it was going to be, no idea if anyone would give a shit. We were just doing it because we wanted to do it together, and we believed we had great ideas, and we wanted to get them to a point where we were able to share them. And so, yeah, that the whole idea about In Resonance Nexus is really, it was trying to find an abstractish way of saying, we're the manner in which we're collaborating. It really feels like we've hit a new level, and so that's the resonance piece between Owen, Joe, and I. But then, there's like this nexus, this sweet spot of what all three of us bring. So it's almost like a musical Venn diagram. So it's this idea of what the center of the center.
Yeah.
And that being the essence and the purity of what we do and who we are as creatives.
Yeah. And for me, it's great to see Joe back in the band, because obviously the last few times, at least that you've toured, he hasn't been with you.
Yeah.
Did he take much convincing to rejoin, and what difference did he make on this record?
No, do you know what? He just, out of the blue, he sent me an email. I don't know, maybe 2021. And he was just like, you know what? I'm really sad about how things fell apart sort of after we'd reformed and we'd done that EP. But he continues to live quite near Glasgow, so he's like 800 miles or 600 miles away from the rest of us.
Yeah.
He had a young family at that point, and it just couldn't be a priority for him. But he was just saying, I love music. I miss you guys. Do you feel the same? Let's see if we can do stuff together again. And at that point, Owen and I had sort of written these. We'd started writing a bunch of songs. We built up a mixtape of songs, for want of a better word. And so we bunged a load of them over to Joe, and he came up with some great stuff. As we moved into being a more sort of melodic band with a little bit of more melodic sophistication, Joe was really key in that. And so, the assumption is always that because I'm the lead vocalist that I write all of the vocal lines. But he wrote the chorus to Star Damage for Beginners. He wrote the chorus to Evil Crawling Eye. So when we did the 4 album, that's all me, and I really felt his absence because he's a much more schooled, versatile musician than I am in terms of note choices and so on. So this felt like a really exciting blend where for 2 reasons actually. In the past, the pace that we've written at, we've always had our moments on records, but there's been with hindsight, there's always a couple of songs, maybe 3 songs on each album where it's like, well, I wish that had a bit more time to marinate. I wish we had a bit more reflection time on that, and maybe some other ideas would have emerged. And so the fact that we did this at a more leisurely pace, and the 10 songs on this record were selected from 30 or 40 songs that we'd written. So they're like the best of the best, or the most ready of the most ready of the best, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then the other thing where, sometimes I hear music that Owen's written and I'm just like, well, I'm a fan of it. It's great, but I can't come up with anything that I think matches its greatness. So what does that mean? What do we do with it?
Yeah.
And the magic of having someone like Joe who's a really good singer, can come up with really good ideas that are they're consistent with my ideas, but they have their own melodic identity. It just adds to the richness of the band again.
Yeah. And one thing I noted on Observe Your Course, you brought in Mally from Cult Heroes One Dice to do dual vocal with you. And obviously I thought that was quite a good nod to the past, obviously, because he was in Blast Cage before you became earthtone9.
He's my predecessor.
He was, yeah. So, whose idea was it to bring Mally in for a song?
I think it was Owen's. We were thinking about having guests on the album, people that are part of the extended family of Earthtone, people that have relevance And yeah, Owen suggested it, and so we sent him the song. And then at the same time, I was working on that tune just in case Mally wasn't happy with what we came up with, or we didn't think it was going to fit with the album. But then it just turned out that the vocals that we'd each written kind of nested in together, so it became like a heavy metal duet.
Yeah, I think it works really well, and I was a massive fan of One Dice back in the day, so it was great to see him feature
Yeah.
again on an album. So
Yeah, well, I mean, his voice is epic. It's
yeah.
so good. He's so good. You know, I felt the burn of that for a while when I was just because you know, I had the Blast Cage demo and I was like, damn, this is great.
Yeah.
And so when I just felt like a pale imitator, like, you know, it felt like a step down to my ears hearing me compared to him. But then I chatted to Mally about it and he was like, he feels the same way.
Yeah.
As in he feels like, he's like, no, you're the best. And I'm like, no, you're the best. But we each of us thinks that we suck. but hopefully neither is true. It's just some sort of dysmorphia thing.
Absolutely. So when you start seeing reviews of the album, do you pay any attention to them?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You know, we're in this sort of luteal phase where it's like it's been done and baked for us for a while. We're 2/3 of the way through the sort of pre-album cycle of telling the world about it, getting people excited, and getting reviews is part of it reignites the excitement about it, to hear other people's perspectives. But I also try not to. It's like, I like it, I'm proud of it. I don't want to get too influenced by what other people say. But at the same time, when other folks hear a version of what you hear in your own work, then that's, you know, it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're playing ArcTanGent's festival in August, middle of August.
Yeah.
Are you planning any dates after that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we just want to be a band again instead of a project. We want to. I don't think we'll ever be doing like 100 shows a year like we were when it was like our primary focus, because, you know, we're family men to varying degrees, we're career men to varying degrees, but, you know, music's super important to us, and it's a lifelong thing. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it at this stage of our lives. You know what I mean? But because we've been away for so long, I feel like right now we've got to convince people that we're serious again about being consistent. You know, It's been 11 years since our last record. So yeah, I mean, fuck dude, if there was no obstacle, and if I could make things happen in the way that I want, we'd be playing Bloodstock, we'd be playing Damnation, we'd get over to some of those sweet newish mainland Europe festivals. You know, I want music's taken me around the world, but not in the way that I thought. Yeah. And so I'd love to go to Japan and Australia, see places that we've not been before, but also go back to the places where we went and had a great time. You know, Spain, Italy were magic, France was magic. You know, it's just wonderful to play shows in different places, and we want that again. But I think it's gonna be gradual. You know, hopefully this record will ripple out, and you know, it's another reboot, but this record, you know, might be like low definition was. You know, because the kind of the pivot point for us was we got offered 2 or 3 really great tours around when Low Def came out, but we were all working full time, so we couldn't square it away. But the thing for us was we got offered a Vision of Disorder tour, and it was like 35 days, and we had to say no. And it was like, man, we can't say no to this stuff.
Yeah.
We've got to be doing it. That's where we need to be. That's who we need to be doing it with. It's mad that we're saying no. And so yeah, what I hope is that people will hear this record will be like, fuck. Yeah. And then stuff will organically start happening again, and hopefully you won't have to say no to too much. We'll be able to figure it out and get relatively busy. I was laughing my ass off the other day. I was speaking to Neil. Neil from Blackstone is playing in Earthtone again. I put the thumb screws on him and grovelled to get him to join the band because I love him. And he's been in the band for like 8 years. And I think we've done 9 gigs with him in the band. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. Haven't you been a band for 8 years and do 9 gigs? Mad. But I feel like we said no to a lot of stuff. Well, I was away a lot between 2014 and 2019, and then the world shut down for a few years. But also for a few folks in the band, it felt being a heritage band and playing the same 8 or 9 songs, even though they're cool songs, they're all 20 years old. It just wasn't exciting. And so the possibility of doing stuff with new material that we feel really pumped about. Yeah. And then, playing old songs is exciting because you see the excitement in the audience, and that's a great thing. But we don't want to be our own tribute band. You know what I mean? We're musicians to create. Yeah. And performance is a part of that. And so, to get a chance to do it again and play new material, which represents a new facet of the band with new energy, with new people that love aggressive metal music. I feel like we're in a really good spot, and I hope we're going to be able to. We'll see how things pan out, but fingers and toes crossed. Yeah. It goes the way we want it to, man.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. So, just finally, on the ArcTanGent festival front, what does it mean to you as a band that a whole festival has sprung up named after one of your albums?
Yeah, it's rad, really rad. I remember I saw the Bronx with Mark Claydon like ages ago in Bristol. And he was like, hey, I want you to meet this guy, James. He's going to do a festival and he wants to call it ArcTanGent. And I think they were already doing 2003s. I think ArcTanGent came afterwards. And he was trying to figure out a way of, he loved heavy music and, like left field metal kind of stuff. And he was getting some of that in 2003s, but it felt like it needed its own thing. And so, just anytime anyone digs that record, ArcTanGent, and it's a beautiful thing. And so for him to give a shit enough about our old band that he wants to call a festival that, it's a cool ass name. Maybe we should have copyrighted it and so we can get some dollar out of him. But we're shit at business, so what can you say?
Karl, it's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. In Resonance Nexus is out on June 21st via Candlelight. Yeah, and I wish you all the best with it.
Thanks so much, dude. Nice one.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with all of our interviews by subscribing to our channel. For all the latest news, reviews, interviews, and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.